Ben Affleck directs an A-list cast, including himself and his old buddy Matt Damon, in the biopic about the most famous shoe of all time. Let's talk about Air. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my spoiler-free review of the new film Air. This is playing in theaters now, but it will be available very soon on Amazon Prime Video. So if you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, you can check this out for free over there. I believe May 12th is the date that it streams there. But for now, you can catch it in theaters. And in fact, this was supposed to be direct to Amazon Prime, this movie. But after Amazon Studios sent it to some of the festivals, the response was very enthusiastic. So they thought, you know what, let's maybe put this in theaters first and then kind of put it on the streamer. And it's actually the first movie that they have had an exclusive theatrical window with before sending it to the streamer since 2019. So putting, not only a lot of push behind this movie specifically, but I think it speaks to the theater industry on the whole. I think a lot of studios are kind of getting away from the model that really was pushed by COVID, by circumstances in, putting 80-90% of your output onto a streamer directly. So I think it's very cool that I was able to see this in a theater, and I was excited to do that. So anyway, before we go too far into the movie, let me welcome you into Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video. Tons of great stuff on the channel. I try to drop a new TV or movie review just about every day for you to check out. So please consider subscribing down below. Click that notification bell so you can be alerted of all my new videos. But let's get into this movie, of course, about the Air Jordan sneaker. Listen to this murderer's row of a cast. You've got Affleck and Damon. I already talked about them. And they both play executives at Nike. So Ben Affleck is Phil Knight, who was the co-founder of Nike. Obviously a very, very high up head muckety-muck there. Matt Damon and Jason Bateman both play marketing execs, Sonny Vaccaro and Rob Strasser, respectively. Chris Messina, who you might know from the Mindy Project and some other things, he plays David Falk, who is Michael Jordan's manager. Chris Tucker is another employee at Nike, and then Viola Davis plays Dolores Jordan. Michael Jordan himself is not really that directly involved with this movie. He didn't, he's not listed as a producer or anything, but Affleck sat down with him and, had some conversations in the early stages, and one of the things Jordan said to him is, you got to get Viola Davis to play my mother. And so Affleck was able to do that. And everybody knows Viola Davis is, one of our finest actresses around. So she obviously, does a great job here. We'll get into that sort of stuff in a little bit. But interestingly enough, there's this one guy, George Raveling, who is played by Marlon Wayans. He's only in one scene, but Jordan made it, pretty clear in many interviews over the years that this guy really was the man that got him to Nike. He got him to sign, really, to Nike. So it's interesting that he sort of got the short shrift here in the film. But look, with biopics like this, they're obviously gonna, change a few things, leave out a few things. I will say in this movie, it seems like everyone is at least real. A lot of times in these biopics, they'll sort of like do an amalgamation of like 3 or 4 different people and say, okay, give them a new name and say, okay, this is so-and-so who doesn't really exist. As far as I can tell, most of the people in this movie are based on real people at the very least. But another thing is, it sort of shifts the timeline a little bit. We're led to believe watching this movie that it takes place over about a weekend or 4 days or something. But that is not the case. It took, weeks of courting and maybe even months to get Jordan to sign with Nike. One thing that is very true about this movie is Jordan did not want to sign with Nike at all. He was very adamant that he wanted to go with one of the other 2 big sneaker brands at the time, which were Adidas. Run DMC made them very, very popular in the 80s. And Converse was the other one. At the time, Nike was known as more of a running shoe and not a basketball shoe that, of course, it is almost, only known for today because of the Air Jordans and I guess the Air Force Ones and some of the other ones. But at the time, they were known as a running sneaker. So, all right. Anyway, I had very high expectations before this movie. I even said to one of my friends, I could get my first A or A plus of the year with this one. It sort of had all of the, and it has, all of the elements that I kind of like in movies. It seems like a very Dan kind of a movie. I do like true stories. I like, movies where there's a lot of sort of, really great actors that are able to, chew the scenery a little bit and play off each other very well. I think about movies like, Spotlight or something like that, where there's a lot of talking going on, and Moneyball's another one. And this, specifically because it's about sports, I did get some Moneyball vibes from this. But I must say it is not going to be in that range for me. It is not an A or an A plus. I should say John Wick 4 probably will be an A plus when I do my year-end list, but I did my video for it and left it with an A minus. But that's probably an A. But in any event, this is not going to be up there, unfortunately, and we'll talk about why here. But Ben Affleck returning to the director's chair, I always appreciate his keen eye behind the camera. I love Argo and The Town, and he just, I think, does really good work. And he gets really strong performances from people, but I feel like a lot of these people don't necessarily need that much massaging. I mean, they are just, pros at the top of the game. Matt Damon, maybe his movies are a little hit or miss, but he always gives great performances in them. And then there's Viola Davis. We don't even need to talk about how great she is. Of course, she steals every scene that she's in, like usual. Bateman is an interesting one because we've seen him do the dramatic thing with Ozark, but prior to that, it was mostly, all comedy all the time. And so he gets his sort of dry remarks in here as this character and plays off Matt Damon's character very well. But I never believed that he wasn't Jason Bateman, and that's sort of a blessing and a curse sometimes. If it's a pure comedy, I think it works to his advantage. Whereas Viola Davis, I mean, look, she still looks like Viola Davis, but I believed that this was Michael Jordan's mother that Matt Damon's character was speaking to. One of my, I've two main faults with this movie. And one is, speaking of sort of the Jordan family, Michael Jordan, and this was a very, deliberate decision made by Affleck. We do not ever see Michael Jordan's face in this movie. Now, we do see it in archive footage, they're watching basketball games or whatever in the office. So we do see some archival footage of Michael Jordan, but there is an actor that plays sort of the back of Michael Jordan's head, and we see some silhouette shots and some side shots, but we never see his face. And Affleck has said in interviews that the reason he did that was because nobody would believe it. Everybody knows, Michael Jordan's one of the most famous faces around. And he just didn't think it would be believable. He thought it would take people right out of the movie. For me, though, I think the opposite kind of happened. Like, leaving him out of it sort of took me out of the movie because I was noticing, okay, here's like a clever camera angle by Affleck to sort of, pivot from Jordan's face, or he's over in the corner, eating something from the food that they've laid out for him, for the meeting. And it's like, to me, it was a little bit distracting to purposely not see his face. So I'm not sure how well he kind of pulled that trick off. But then also the other thing is, this movie is loaded with 80s tunes. You could say it's almost like one long 80s music video, or like a best of the 80s montage kind of thing. And a lot of it really worked for me. Some of the songs were a little more obvious, but a lot of songs were ones that we don't necessarily hear all the time, but that were very crucial to that, mid-80s time period. But the song in the closing, before the closing credits, like the closing part where they say, okay, here's what this, real person looks like, and here's what they did, and, after he left Nike, he did this. It was all played to Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA, and it was so, like, corny and schmaltzy. It was almost eye-roll inducing. There were some interesting facts to see on the screen about some of the stuff. But it was just a kind of like, oh man, we get it. This is too much. This is too in the corny vein for me. Those are really my biggest issues with the movie. That it did kind of go into that schmaltzy area a little bit during the movie, but then definitely at that end portion, and then just the distracting nature of not actually seeing Michael Jordan's face. But other than that, it does have all of the hallmarks of those movies I mentioned, Moneyball, Spotlight, a lot of movies based around real life events where there's a lot of talking and negotiating and getting things done and, marketing meetings and stuff like that. I got to admit, I dig that stuff when it's done well, and it is done well here. It's not done excellent that I was hoping for. But and I didn't really even mention the acting, from some of the other people. Damon is very good here. Again, maybe not his best. Affleck, same. Clearly they were having fun with each other, and the chemistry's there with everybody. And the time period. I should say this about Affleck's directing. I mean, the time period was perfect. He got all of the decor right and the way people spoke and all of that. So, no issues with that, but it really is sort of those two things I mentioned that I cannot give it that A or A plus that I really was hoping for on my way in. So this is not an amazing movie. It's not an excellent movie. It is a very good movie. And I hope you enjoy it either in theaters or on Amazon when it comes there. I leave Air with a B plus. Definitely very good, but unfortunately not one of the best of the year so far for me. All right, that's going to do it. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Damn Reviews It. Bye.